everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. I am going to Disneyland in just a few days and I have this harebrained idea to make another dress for it. So if you saw my video from 2 or 3 weeks ago about making my Winnie the Pooh dress, this is going to be kind of a similar look to that, namely that I'm using the same bodice pattern, but I am going to be changing up the sleeves and the skirt a little bit from that pattern. So in case you missed that video or you were just curious about this pattern, this is Simplicity 8252, and I have found that this is such a great fitting pattern. This pattern has a little like pinch point right here, a center front seam, and then this really interesting diagonal dart that goes like this as opposed to your standard like dart here, and I don't know, there's something about this dart situation that just really fits my body type super well. So if you have not tried Simplicity 8252, it is definitely one that I would recommend trying. I've never actually made the overdress for this because if you notice, this has kind of like a sheer dress over a sleeveless dress in here. I've never made that overdress. I've only made the underdress, but the underdress is really fantastic. So yeah, give that a try if you are looking for a dress, and I have adapted it to have sleeves. So if you have seen like my Barbie dress from a few years ago, the Winnie the Pooh dress like I mentioned, I made my sparkly blue dress from a couple years ago out of this pattern. There's probably another dress that I'm forgetting, to be honest, but I really like this pattern. It works really well. Oh, it's my gingham, my blue and white gingham jumper dress. That was actually the first one that I made out of this before I adapted it to have sleeves. But yeah, I really like this pattern. It just works really well on my body. So that is what I'm using bodice pattern wise. And I'm hoping to not have to mock it up since I just did it. I think I've got all of my notes in there. And I am going to be using this Alice in Wonderland fabric right here. Now, I got this fabric from Michael's, like just now. It arrived a couple days ago. It's not good quality fabric. Let's just start off by saying that. This is very thin fabric. I think that since I got away with outlining the Winnie the Pooh dress, I am going to flatline the bodice, but I did not line the skirt or the sleeves. I think I can get away with outlining this one as well because I don't think it is any thinner than that fabric, though it is a lot less crisp. This is really quite drapey. And frankly, ordering fabric from Michael's has been a saga. Now, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or Threads, you may have already seen this next little video here, but since I have not shared it with you guys, who are frankly my main audience here, and I am not able to post this little clip that's coming up as a short because it is too long for YouTube Shorts, but I filmed it vertically for Instagram, so therefore it doesn't really work otherwise, I'm going to insert vertical me for the next few minutes here and tell you about my saga with ordering fabric from Michael's. Basically, buyer beware. So let's go to Rebecca from a couple days ago talking about Michael's. Okay, friends, let's talk about Michael's and how they have no idea how to sell fabric. Buyer beware. So I just placed my first order from Michael's for fabric for shipping last week, about 5 days ago. And I placed an order for 4 items, multiple yards per item. I placed an order for, I believe it was 6 yards of an Alice in Wonderland cotton print, as well as 7 yards of a lavender cotton, 3 yards of black cotton, and 4 yards of white cotton. The black, white, and lavender were all just like really basic cheap cotton. And within about a day or two, I got a shipping notification. And the shipping notification said that all of the Alice in Wonderland fabric had shipped, great, and that 4 yards of the 7 yards of the lavender cotton had shipped. So I called up Michael's and talked to someone and explained that I needed it uncut. I needed the whole thing. And he said, okay, no problem. I'll put that in the notes. They'll reship it. And I thought everything was hunky-dory. I only spent a few minutes talking to him. Cut to a few days later, yesterday, when I received another notification, having not received anything in between. I received another notification that the black cotton was canceled because they didn't have it. This is 4 days after placing my order. They discovered that they did not have it. So I called up Michael's again and I spoke to someone else who said, oh yeah, that's canceled. And then also the white is canceled and the lavender, the rest of the lavender is also canceled. No notifications about this. When you log in, when I log in and look at the order status, it doesn't show those others. It only shows the black being canceled. So she passed me on to a supervisor because I explained how I had already requested that the lavender be reshipped, and there were apparently like no notes about that. And I spoke with this supervisor then for like, honestly, I think it was like 30 minutes or something like that. And she was very helpful, but it was made clear to me that Michaels has no idea how to sell fabric, how fabric works, etc. And also, honestly, from both of these people who helped me this second time, it was also made clear to me that Michaels seems to have no idea how online shopping works. Because what Michaels told me is that when you place an order online for shipping, because mind you, all of these were for shipping. None of this was at my local stores. None of it showed that it was available. So I couldn't do pickup or like in-store pickup later or anything like that. I had to do shipping. Now, naturally, my brain, who has never online shopped before, apparently, I thought that when you place something for shipping, it comes from a warehouse, like you normally do. I was informed by these Michaels associates on the phone that no, they find a local store who will take the order and will ship it to you, regardless of how much of the fabric they actually have in your order. So they reach out to like 3 stores to see who will ship it to you. And one store selected that they had the Alice in Wonderland. So I guess they were the one who were like, yes, I'll ship this, even though they didn't have the other fabrics. And then the rest of it got canceled because it wasn't able to be shipped. And actually, 4.5 days later, after I spoke with this associate on the phone, they shipped 1 yard of the white cotton. Now, this associate said that there was, and I'm talking about the supervisory associate, said that there was no way that they could put in an order that you don't want it to be cut. Because no one at Michaels understands that when you order 7 yards of fabric, you want it 7 continuous. And so she said she would try. She would reach out once a store selected that they were going to be the ones who would fulfill that order. She would reach out to them and request it that way, but she couldn't do it in the initial order. Regardless, yesterday evening, I got a notification that the reordered order was being shipped, this time with all 3 yards of the black and with 4 yards of the lavender, because it's still being cut. I don't know what's happening with the white at all. And then also this supervisory associate goes on to tell me that despite the fact that when you look at the fabric product page, it says, not happy with your order, return it for like 60 days or something like that. That if you click in past that and read all the way down, I'm talking majorly scrolling down their entire return policy, there is a note that says cut fabric can't be returned. Even though on the fabric product page, it says it can be returned. So someone at Michaels who has created the procedures for this fabric has never met a sewer in their life. Now, I do want to say I got the 4 yards of lavender and the Alice in Wonderland fabric. It arrived today, just a little bit ago. This was the last day that the entire order was supposed to arrive. It could have arrived anytime within today or the previous 2 days. And the lavender fabric is actually a beautiful quality. This is really nice cotton. There's a nice weight to it. This was only $3.99. It almost makes me feel like a sateen or like a slightly polished cotton. I really like this. I wish it was 7 yards because that's what I need in this project. But I really like this. The Alice in Wonderland fabric, on the other hand, is extremely thin. This is probably half the weight of any of the printed cottons that Joann's ever carried. I don't know if you can tell right now, but you can completely see through this. And also there was a mark like right on top. I think it is just like, it honestly looks like a little bit of makeup or dirt, and I think it will come right out. But this is very, very thin cotton, and it feels fairly poor quality. So yeah. This has been my experience with Michaels so far, because clearly the saga is not over. I really hope that someone from Michaels sees these. They have not responded to any of my tags on Instagram from previous issues, like when I tagged them because their commercial shows someone sewing from the back of a sewing machine. Because clearly no one on their team knows how to sew. So basically, you probably shouldn't order fabric from Michaels until they have decided that they actually want to educate themselves and they figure out what they're really doing here and how sewing and fabric actually works. Because right now, they haven't got a clue. Naturally, despite that clip having quite a bit of traction on, frankly, all of the platforms that I've shared it on, again, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, Michaels has not responded. I'm sure they've seen it because I feel like if they have anyone on their social media team whatsoever, they have seen it because the quantity of you guys who have tagged them in the comments, in resharing, etc., plus I tagged them originally, they've seen it and they apparently don't care to comment or do anything to improve their system. So probably don't order fabric from Michaels. At this point, I am still waiting for potentially more of those fabrics to get here and to figure out what they do when I go to return it in store, because according to you guys, some stores are going by like the verbatim hidden policy of if fabric has been cut off of a bolt period, it cannot be returned. And some stores are going with the if you cut the fabric after ordering it, it cannot be returned. But frankly, if they are gonna go and cut the fabrics, like if you order 3 yards and they send you a 1 yard cut and a 2 yard cut, or a 1 yard cut and cancel the rest of your order, they have to accept that as a return because I'm not okay with just 1 yard of a fabric. So I will update you with that, probably not in this video, so stay tuned for other videos or potentially on Instagram. I will update you with how that saga goes of the rest of like the order getting here, seeing if it's a color match, for example, for the lavender, and also what winds up happening with the return process. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and get back to the Alice in Wonderland dress here. By the way, I believe the spot did come out in the wash. I did wash this. I can't find where the spot was. It should have been somewhere up here, I think, and I'm not seeing it. So I think that spot at least did come out in the wash. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make up the bodice of this. And then the sleeves for this are going to be a shorter sleeve because kind of my idea is to make this a little bit inspired by the shape of Alice's dress. So like a shorter puffed sleeve, still a very full skirt. I'm not going to do an apron or anything like that. It's just going to be like a sundress style, but a little bit more inspired by Alice's dress. I don't know if I might put maybe like a trim or something on the bodice. I only have 3 days to do this in, like 3.5 days to do this in, plus, you know, only in the evenings because I'm working. So we're just gonna see how much of this project I can even get done. Hopefully, since I've done this pattern before, I can kind of speed run this. But yeah, let's go ahead and put the bodice together and then we'll talk about how this skirt is gonna be constructed because it is a little bit different than the Winnie the Pooh skirt. So I have cut out the bodice pieces and flatlined them to cotton sateen using my serger. All 3 of the bodice pieces are flatlined. Actually, I also did the straps too. With the straps, it was really the only part where I was trying to do like careful cutting with the pattern because I was trying to center the pattern on the straps. And then basically I cut out one and was like, oh shoot, if I cut it out in the same placement, either it has to be like exactly the same or it has to be like a different pattern portion, because if I did it a little bit off, it would look more accidental, basically, like I messed up. So I decided to cut out the second one in the Alice and Cheshire Cat section, and then this one was the Queen of Hearts Tweedledee Tweedledum section. And also, let's talk about the sleeves. So as I mentioned, I am doing this a little bit differently than the Winnie the Pooh dress that I made a few weeks ago because, I guess, twofold. For one, it turns out it's going to be really, really hot with my Disney trip. I'm hoping that the Winnie the Pooh dress will be okay, honestly. The sleeves are very big and flowy, so I think we'll be all right. But it's supposed to be 88 degrees when I am in Disney now, and if you've ever been to Anaheim, you will know that it is extremely humid there as well. Today, when I checked earlier, it was 65% humidity while being like 80 some odd degrees. So, for that reason and others, and also just because I don't want to do the exact same sleeves, I'm making different sleeves. So I'm going to be making these a little bit shorter and a little bit less poofy. They are still a poofy gathered sleeve. They still have elastic in the bottom. However, the Winnie the Pooh sleeves, if you remember those ones, that has basically an elastic channel that then you have a ruffle that comes out the bottom and sticks out. So it looks like this. What I'm going to be doing is actually pretty similar to the floral dress that I made a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, which was like the last hurrah of Let Joanne's Pick My Fabric. So it's all using the same sleeve base pattern, which ironically is from an Alice in Wonderland pattern. Simplicity 2325. This seriously has the best puff sleeve pattern that I have ever, needed. Basically, I turn to this all the freaking time for the puff sleeve pattern alone. I think maybe I've used the bodice pattern at this point too. In fact, I'm almost wondering, was this what I first based my gunny sacks off of? I don't think so, but it is a princess themed bodice pattern. I can't remember if I've used it or not, but the sleeve pattern I use all the freaking time because it is so good for puffs. It's so easy to manipulate it and just make it bigger, smaller, change it, etc. It just looks like this. So with this sleeve, what I've done is I was trying to fit it on a portion of fabric for one thing. So it is a little bit narrower than this sleeve right here. So instead of going the full width across, it stops like about here. It's a 28-inch wide sleeve as opposed to, I think this would have made like a 30-inch wide sleeve. And then also I have curved the bottom portion here. I've curved this up just a little bit. So this is less long because like if we look at the pattern envelope here, I personally feel like this looks droopy on her arm. I don't like that look. So by shortening the inner part of the arm, you kind of fix some of that droopiness that you can get otherwise. So you do that just by curving up like the bottom portion and making this part smaller, a little bit shorter. And then also because I narrowed this, I did slightly change this curve to make it a little bit less steep, basically, because by cutting this off, it becomes a little bit of a steep curve. So I did change that a little bit. Overall, it is still this sleeve. Again, this is a really, really great pattern to use as a jumping off point for gathered sleeves. So I have already actually cut out that sleeve now, and that looks like this. So you can see the shape here where it goes up at the bottom just a little bit. Like it doesn't slope up a ton. It's just a little bit because I think this inner arm is about like 1.5 inches shorter than what it's supposed to be in the pattern, something like that. But yeah, these are the sleeves. So I'm going to serge around the outside. These are not getting flat lined, and I'm just going to serge that, sew up the edges here and run a gathering stitch along the top edge. The bottom edge, I have cut this long enough where I'm going to be creating a self elastic channel. By self, I mean I'm just going to turn it twice and thread elastic through it, and that is the elastic channel. So it is going to have an elasticated bottom, but it's going to be a lot shorter than those Winnie the Pooh sleeves. It's going to probably hit me about here, whereas those are like down here. So yeah, that is the sleeve. Those are the bodice pieces. I'm going to go ahead and put things together now, and then once those assembled, we can talk the changes to the skirt pattern. Well, I wanted to check the bodice fit before I go ahead and add the sleeves and bind the neckline, and I guess it's good that I did because as you can see, for some reason, it is still just a pinch too long over here. I say still as if this is a continuation of the Winnie the Pooh video, because in the Winnie the Pooh dress video, this was a little bit too long and I shortened it. So I used the measurements from Winnie the Pooh, not from Barbie, because that's where I had taken the measurements for Winnie the Pooh. I used the measurements from Winnie the Pooh to make these straps, and yet somehow this side is still a little bit too long. So I need to shorten that by about 1/4 inch on each side, but the rest of it I think is really fantastic. So I'm pleased with everywhere else. Technically I could go ahead and bind the neckline because that's part of the sleeves, but I'm going to fix that first and bind off the neckline and add the sleeves. So I've decided to do something a little bit different with this bodice edging. Now, normally I bind this and then hand sew it down on the inside, and I do that with bias tape. But I'm actually thinking I'm going to do a really small double turn, stitch that by machine, and then add trim along the front or the entire neckline instead, because I think that'd be really cute and kind of border the pattern to like give it a nice solid seal in. And I was looking at 3 different trims. So I was looking at a red velvet ribbon, which feels very Queen of Hearts, but I don't really know if it goes, and I also have not tested this for Color Fast. I always recommend that you test especially red ribbons, because if you've seen my peppermint bustle stuff, you will know that all of the red on that has bled and it's annoying. I could also do it with this sort of, it's blue, but it's like, I don't know. It is very much an Alice blue. It is unfortunately not the same Alice blue that her dress is in this, even though I think this is a little bit more true to Alice. But I feel like it's getting lost, and there's just a lot of blues in here, so it's not my favorite. And then I remembered that I had this trim right here that looks like it has lots of little red roses. And if you know Alice in Wonderland, you know painting the roses red. And so I was kind of thinking, like, would that look cute, or would that get lost? Would that make things too busy? I'm leaning towards cute. I think that might be a really cute way to finish off the entire neckline. I'm pretty sure I have enough for the neckline. I don't have a ton, but I think I have enough. So I think I might do that. Regardless, I am going to do some sort of trim, so I'm just going to turn this really narrow and stitch that with machine. So I've been comparing different trims on here. I started with just the roses, and I feel like they were very much getting lost and also kind of clashing somehow at the same time. Then I was like, okay, what if I put black ribbon under the roses? Would that make them pop? No, obviously it really doesn't make a difference. But then I was like, what if I just do black velvet ribbon? I feel like that pops, and that looks really quite nice up at the top. I thought this ribbon was going to be way too wide and heavy at first, but frankly, I think that looks like a really nice finish. So I think I'm going to do just the black ribbon. I love how this looks. It did block off some of the characters that I had tried to place, like Alice here, but I think it just looks so nice. Just so you can see the finishing on the inside, this is what it looks like. You can see the really narrow hem, and then that kind of went partially over with the stitching of the black velvet anyway, but those 2 lines are the black velvet stitching. So yeah, that is what it looks like on the inside, and on the outside, let's add the sleeves. I've sewn the gathering stitches in the top portion of the sleeve here, and down here I have turned a hem wide enough where I can put the elastic through. So basically I just don't sew it right here, and then I'm going to thread the elastic through with a safety pin. It's too wide to use a bodkin. If it was narrower elastic, I'd use a bodkin. But yeah, I'm going to set the sleeves first and then put the elastic in so that I can make sure that it fits my arms right. We have a bodice with sleeves. I love this black trim. I think the sleeves look really cute. I do still have to try this on to make sure that the elastic that I've put into the sleeves is the right size. Right now it's just safety pinned at the end. Actually, I'm straight pinned to this one. Should probably change it to a safety pin before I try it on. But yeah, I need to make sure that's the right size. However, I've mentioned this in past videos, but I personally find that it can be challenging to try on just a bodice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the skirt first, because it's not like I'll have much sewing to do once the skirt is attached. It's just hard to get on and off a bodice. Even though this one does have the opening for the zipper, it's just kind of weird. So time to do the skirt. So since this fabric is not a gridded fabric of any sort, it's not stripes, it's not plaid, etc., I am actually going to rip this one on the grain to get the panels that I want. First though, I am going to measure all of the fabric that I have left. I do have quite a lot of it, and frankly all of the rest of this can go into the skirt. I am planning to do a flat panel skirt. However, if you watched the Winnie the Pooh video, you'll know that that one was able to be made out of just 2 large panels that were the previous curtains or the valances. This one obviously is fabric yardage, and so we have to keep into consideration that it is only this wide. So we're gonna have a lot of panels basically, but I've been really liking these pleated skirts up at the top, so my hope is to pleat this to the bodice. That said, pleating of course is always easier when you are working with a gridded fabric because it's really easy to see what you're pleating. So like Winnie the Pooh, like the plaid jumper dress that I just made, those are very easy. This is going to be a little bit more challenging because it has no grid. I will have to actually measure or just eyeball everything. But yeah, I'm going to see how many skirt panels we can get out of this to see if I want to use it all. For one thing, I probably will. And or if I do decide to use it all, like how many can I do? How many panels can I do? Because obviously we have to do this in multiples of the length that I need, which is usually about 33.5 inches, unhemmed, you know, including the hem and the seam allowance. So yeah, I'm gonna see how many of those we can get out of this, and I'm going to rip those panels and then we can sew them together. The kind of other thing that has to be factored in is that because we have a side zipper, we need to have a seam that matches up with where that side zipper is. Now the pockets don't necessarily need to be there. So I could kind of like create my own seam if I really need to. Ideally, the pockets are also at the side seam. It's always easiest to find your pockets if they're where they normally are. So I do prefer to have pockets there if I can, but if the math just isn't mathing, sometimes pockets have to go somewhere else. I've already cut the pockets, by the way. They are out of cotton sateen. I've already serged them even. So let's go ahead and do some math and figure out how many panels we can make. So crazy news. I can actually get 5 panels out of all of this. Frankly, I think that might be too much skirt. That would be 210 inches minus the seam allowances. So I don't know, about 200 inches, I guess. The Winnie the Pooh skirt is 182 inches total. So I just feel like I can probably forego 1 panel here and not do 5 and just do 4. In the case of doing 4, what I am probably planning to do, I really don't like a center front seam. I just think a center front seam makes things so ugly, but I want those side seams. So what I would do here is, although it would create just slightly more work for myself, I would actually take 3 full panels and 2 half panels. So I would put the full panel in the front and then the 2 half panels. That gives me the side seams that line up with the seams of the bodice and the zipper, etc. And then 2 full panels in the back to have a center back seam. For some reason, I don't mind a center back seam, but a center front seam drives me crazy, especially when we're talking about a pattern that is not going to match, because this is, I mean, I suppose maybe it's a matchable pattern. I'm not going to be matching the pattern, that's for sure. So yeah, I think that is my plan. I'm going to cut those out. If for some reason that looks like it's somehow not enough fabric, which I kind of doubt, I'll add in that last extra panel. If not, I guess I will have a yard extra of, or not quite a yard, like 33 inches extra of this fabric. But yeah, I guess I had a little bit more than I expected. So I changed my mind. I am going to do all 5 panels. For one thing, this fabric is just so like thin and bodiless basically that I held it up to myself and looked at like, what would it be like if one panel was 1/4 versus what would it be like if it was a little bit more dense? And I liked the more dense one. So I'm adding this extra panel, plus then I won't have all sorts of like a stupid amount left of this with, you know, nothing really to do with it. So yeah, I'm doing 5 panels, and the way that I'm going to figure out the side seams is, honestly, I am going to sew all 5 panels together, just like in, you know, in a loop. And then I am going to basically find like midway points. I'm going to look at the center of one panel, which would wind up being the center front, that way there's no seam, and bring that back and find like where the equivalent seam is that's going to be the center back, and then look at the midway points between those, and I'm going to create seams at those midway points to put the pockets and the zipper into, and that is a good way to like just figure out your midway. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, and it's gonna be an even more full skirt. I am really hoping that I don't regret how much fabric is going into this skirt, because it's a lot. It is 208 inches around. I realized that the dress that I'm wearing right now, this actually has more fabric in the skirt than the Winnie the Pooh dress, just slightly. This one's like 186 inches around. This is another one that is like gathered flat. So it's like 22 inches more than this dress. And it's supposed to be really, really hot at Disney, so I'm a little bit concerned, but honestly, I'm just gonna run with it. So I wanted to illustrate to you what exactly we are doing here as far as like finding that midpoint. So I've just selected a random panel right here, and this part right here, this little pinch fold, that is going to become the center front. So I am going to mark that with a little line with my friction pens so that I know that that is the center front. Then we can go all the way down. Guys, I might regret this. We're gonna go all the way down to the center back seam. And this is the center back seam, or rather this seam is going to become our center back. So now what we're doing is we are taking those two together and we are going to find the midpoint. So here we go. This is the midpoint over here, and I'm hoping that this will act like any normal cotton where you can rip it both ways on the grain. So you can rip it across the grain, you can rip it with the grain. I'm gonna be, you know, potentially ruining my fabric if it doesn't rip with the grain for some reason, but we are going to try it regardless. So I have just marked that spot over here, and I am going to cut just a little bit of each of these. You only need to cut like 3/4 of an inch or so. Honestly, going with the grain, you need to cut even less. You need to cut that much going against the grain, going across the grain because of selvage. You need to make sure you're getting past the selvage. And I should probably rip these one at a time. The reason that I'm doing full seams, by the way, and not some sort of just a slash in the fabric is I feel like if you take a slash in the fabric and you create it into a seam, it winds up looking weird. So there we go. We can rip with the grain as well. So good. I'm glad. It will probably have a stumble here at the bottom because it is serged at the bottom already. So I will just cut the serging. And now those two edges are going to get serged, and I am going to re-seam them back together, but this time I'm adding pockets. Also, I want to explain something here for a sec just to head off any potential comments or suggestions. Yes, this little bit from like the seam to here, that is really like enough where if I took it out of this skirt would become the same dimension as say like this dress right here. However, this is the back section right here. So like, yeah, I could go in and I could cut, you know, or rip 2 sections out of the front, or just like lots of little sections and remove lots of little bits. That just feels really wasteful. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna stick with this fuller skirt. We're gonna commit to the bit and see how it goes. But yeah, if those like 2 little sections had been part of the front, I would have probably removed them because frankly, for me, I don't mind if a front section of a skirt is slightly less full than a back section. However, I would not want the back section to be slightly less full than the front. And ideally, you kind of want them to be even all the way around, unless you are dealing with like Victorian, where the back is significantly fuller than the front. So yeah, just in case you guys were going to suggest taking off those little sections there, that is why I'm not doing that. And now I'm going to serge these and put them back together with those pockets and a zipper. So I have added the pocket bags onto both sides of the front here. You can see that on the side. And then I've also added it onto basically the left side of the back. That's why I'm showing you the inside, because that's how I hold it up and figure things out, is like, oh, this part faces that way, therefore this is the left side seam. So yeah, I've added there. I have not added it over here because what's going to happen with that last remaining pocket bag is that this is going to get added to the right side pocket bag of the front. So it's going to get kind of stacked on top like this. I showed you guys this a bit in the Winnie the Pooh video, but basically this is what happens when you are putting a zipper into a pocket seam, or a zipper and a pocket into the same seam. That zipper gets attached to the pocket as opposed to the skirt. So yeah, that's going to get attached there, and then the other side is just going to get attached. Oh my god, this is gonna be so much skirt, you guys. What am I doing? The other side's going to get attached like normal, like you would with an inseam pocket. So right sides together over here, around the outside of the pocket and down the skirt, whereas this side, the pocket bag gets attached here, and the skirt does get attached to itself because the zipper's not that long. The zipper's only gonna go like partway through the pocket. So I'm gonna sew all that together, and then we will be ready not to set the zipper yet because we have to pleat up the skirt. So we'll be ready to pleat up the skirt to the bodice, and then finally we can do the zipper and hem it and finally check that elastic. The skirt is attached. I eyeballed every single one of these pleats, so they may not be exactly even, but I think they honestly look really good. Like, I'm happy with the way they look. I also have this kind of a trick for ironing pleats like this because I was pleating these to the bodice for the most part. So the very first section, like the first quarter of the bodice, I did pleat it and then like make sure that it fit the bodice. The rest of it, I basically was pleating it to the bodice as I went and kind of squidging things around as I went so that it would fit the bodice. The only ones that I measured was like, I wanted to make sure both sides of the center were the same, and same with both sides of the center back. And then to press pleats like this, if you are pleating it to a bodice and you're not already pressing it, the way that you can do that is basically give yourself some tension, lean it up against a table or whatever so that the pleats hang down, and literally just, you can like put something kind of under that, but you don't really need to. You can literally just take your iron and like steam press it, and honestly, like that tension gives it a really nice crisp pleat. So highly recommend doing something like that because you only need the tops of it pressed anyway, like where it's meeting the seam, and that also helps to open up that waist seam because everything is hanging down. It definitely is a little bit heavy, even though it's really lightweight fabric because there's so much of it. So hopefully I'm not going to swelter, but it is time to add the invisible zip to the side seam. The zipper is in, and I'm going to attempt to zip it up on camera, and it went in pretty perfectly. Yay! So that is fantastic, which means we can try it on, make sure that the elastic is in a good place, and do a quick turned hem, and the dress will be done. So I think I might tighten this sleeve just the tiniest bit. This one feels pretty perfect, so I'm just gonna sew that in place as is. I don't really love the pattern repeat that I wound up with like right on the boobs, but you know what? It is what it is. Obviously, we're not going back now because I used all of the fabric in the skirt, and also it is 9:16 and I leave the house tomorrow morning at 8:30 to go to Disney. You guys are gonna get the reveal of this dress at Disney, so I hope you like that while I edit furiously like at night on my Disney trip. But yeah, it's really, really cute. I'm actually super happy that I made this skirt this full. I think it looks fantastic. I really love my choice to do the black trim around the neck. I just absolutely love the sharpness of that. I think it looks so cute. So yeah, I'm gonna take in this elastic a little, sew that in place, turn my hem, and we will see you at Disneyland. A success. I had a ton of fun wearing her yesterday. Obviously, it is now another day, but I had a ton of fun. I got so many compliments from park goers, cast members, etc. So obviously people could tell that it was an Alice print, even though it was a little bit scattered. Honestly, she wasn't even too hot to wear, even with all of that extra fabric in the skirt, which was really great. So yeah, overall, definitely a success. I will definitely be wearing her a ton because it was a very comfortable dress to wear too. Honestly, you may see more dresses in this style in the future. It's possible, who knows? But yeah, Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, so hopefully you liked this video. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon, and if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with a sewing vlog like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional sewing or costuming related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I do want to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Kim, and the Dowager Duchess Isabel Thompson. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!